Click my stuff here. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garden of Sports Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gardner, and I have guest host here, Zach Sills.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. And today we're going to go over fantasy basketball sleepers for points leagues. And the format's just going to be running through down our list based on rank. So we both have some lists typed out. But Zach, I'm thinking we'll run through just, based on their rank. So you'll hop in at your highest ranked guy when we get down to that area.
Gotcha.
And yeah, we'll just give our evaluation of each player, give our takes on each other's sleepers, and hopefully you learn a lot this episode. So we'll just jump right in. Anthony Davis at 26 is my first sleeper off the board. He's been a first round or early second round draft pick for about 6 years now, and he's fallen to 26 because of the injuries he's had the past 2 years. Obviously that is a concern, but if the guy can actually stay healthy, he'll give you first or second round value at a decreased price here at pick 26. So I think he's worthy of the risk there, and that's probably where I would draft him. Would have drafted him the past 2 years as well, but I was avoiding him the past 2 years because he was so high. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I agree. He's almost a consistent double-double guy, right? So he's going to get you the points and the boards and
Yeah.
shoot maybe even a couple blocks in there. So great defender on the rim. Yeah, when he's healthy, he's a great asset to have.
Yeah, and he's around guys like Paul George. Paul George is also injury prone. He's around guys like Julius Randle, who had one breakout year 2 years ago and a bad year last year. So, I don't know. I think he's definitely worth it. And he was in an interview. Yeah, for sure. In an interview this year or a couple days ago, he said he wants to actually have an 82 game season in his career. So it is a goal of his, and maybe this is the year. We'll see. Second sleeper out of our rankings here, Kawhi Leonard at 36. Only reason he's this low is because of what's called load management, and it's something Kawhi Leonard takes seriously and has rested 3 or 4 of the past couple years. He's rested between 15 and 20 games a season, which can definitely hurt you in fantasy, but I just think 36 is too low for him. I think he should be more mid-20s, and this is kind of a steal if you can get him in the third round. Or fourth round here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Kawhi. Just a great scorer. Yeah, with the load management, depending on, I guess, your league, if it says he's out, you can put him on IR for those rest games where you could actually stream a guy in his spot. So depending on your league does that, would be nice if you can move him to the IR for that game that he's resting. But if not, it is a little bit tough to have a guy who's healthy sitting on your bench for your game. But yeah, with his potential, he can make up for those games that he's gone. It's not necessarily a week. Not necessarily losing a week because he's resting 2 games. I don't know.
Yeah, and also small forwards, it's a hard position to fill sometimes in fantasy because it's very top-heavy, including guys like Kawhi, and then it really falls off, and then you're going to have a tough time filling your starting lineup. So, depending on your first couple draft picks, Kawhi is definitely a great small forward to have.
Agreed.
Our next guy on the list, Jalen Green at 65. He finished last year beast mode. I think he could easily average 40 fantasy points per game, between 35 and 40, and way outshoot his ranking at 65. I mean, minimum, he's at least 10 people underrated here. And he could break the top 40 players. I mean, just with the usage alone on Houston, I think the offense is going to kind of run through him. And yeah, just end of last season, I mean, he probably won some people their fantasy basketball leagues because people were dropping him mid-season last year. And if you were able to scoop him up, he tore it up for you and could have won your league. I mean, he's behind guys like Buddy Hield at 64. I mean, what is that? Russell Westbrook at 63. I mean, Westbrook could have a bounce back, but Jalen Green's going to have the higher usage because he's not next to LeBron James. I mean, there's plenty of guys in front of him. The only guy I think should stay in front of him is Middleton at 60, but everybody else between 55 and 65 is not as good as Jalen Green in my eyes.
Definitely. I mean, he is the guy in Houston. You're 100% right about the usage. He's going to be out there a lot. He's going to be shooting a lot. And he's going to be really facilitating the ball around KPJ out there. Yeah, him and Jabari, those are the guys that are going to be getting a lot of the shots this year. So I agree with that. And then I also wanted to bring up with the addition of Jabari there, with him being a great shooter as well, I believe it's going to open up the floor a good bit. And then Jalen Green, who was shooting 34%, I think he's able to boost that percentage up a little bit this year with the addition of Jabari. So that will be a nice little bump to his fantasy points as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. Next up here in our rankings of his sleepers, Devin Vassell at 73. With DeJounte Murray gone, several of the San Antonio Spurs players are going to be taking away that usage. I mean, DeJounte Murray had like a record high usage rate in San Antonio, and Devin Vassell was one of the main guys when DeJounte left, or when DeJounte was hurt, to take over and do really well. I mean, nearly averaging 30 fantasy points per game in points leagues. I think at 73, you can't really go wrong with him, and I trust him more just based on the usage alone under Greg Popovich. I mean, Greg Popovich likes to play his young guys between 35 and 40 minutes. I trust him a lot more than some guys ahead of him on this list. And he should be one of the top two scorers on the team. How do you feel about Devin, Zach?
I agree with that. Yeah, just having Murray not there definitely increases the usage and the volume and the shots taken by Vassell, and he is a good shooter as well. I think 73 is around is that.
Round 8, right?
No,
just like round 7.
Higher up. Yeah, but I think it's great value there.
Round 7 for a 10-person round. Round 6 for like a 12-person league.
Right, okay. That's great value. I think he'll be...
For sure. I mean, I do like a lot of guys around this area. It's got Jared Allen, Tyrese Maxey, but it's also got guys like Lauri Markkanen and Sadiq Bey ahead of him. And I don't really trust those guys, so... I think it definitely is good value. He has risen. He was more of a steal in the earlier rankings. He has gone up, I think, as a reaction, like people figuring out, more about how the team's going to run. Next up is another Spur for me at 5, Keldon Johnson, 79. So say you miss out on Devin Vassell, some of these other guys around this area. I think Keldon is the best big man on San Antonio, or small forward, and it's another one that could fill your small forward, like we said, at a weak position to fill, and he's going to have a high usage rate increase. He's shed 20 pounds in the offseason. He's going to be faster. He's going to have the usage. He had 17 points per game last year. Next to DeJounte Murray hogging the ball, I think he could easily pass 20 points per game this year. So another one I'm excited about.
Yeah, I remember it might have been 2 years ago. He was very productive. I think I had him on my fantasy team, and he would, I think it was like consistent 25 plus a night. I think he kind of regressed from that last year. Um, he's still not sure how many years he's been in the league, but it could just be a regression last year, and then he'll be back up to higher usage next year. A lot of points. I like Keldon, 79.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think a lot of these San Antonio guys, like one of them has to bust out, and it could be two of them as well. So that's why
True.
I'm listing them on this team.
We'll say they also did just draft a power forward in Jeremy Sohan. It didn't look like he was getting all that much run in preseason. He was still getting a decent amount of minutes, but I think Keldon still had the starting spot there, but a little bit of competition to be aware of.
For sure. I don't think Greg Popovich is big on rookies though. Like besides Tim Duncan, like you had to earn your minutes with him over the guys who have been there longer. But yeah, I mean he could. If they want, they could play both though, because Keldon can play the small. So we'll see how it plays out. But usually Greg Popovich trusts the older guys. All right, next up, John Collins at 84. This is a really kind of a fall from grace for him. He had a down year last year in fantasy. There's no doubt about it. He was down to about 32 fantasy points per game, which is not good for compared to his previous years. He did have injuries. He was nicked up last year. He missed over 20 games. But now Gallinari is gone, who was a guy taking his power forward minutes away. And he's fully healthy coming into the season. He used to be a 4th round pick. I think this is a huge steal at 84. And definitely one of my top targets to fill in at power forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've had Collins, I think, on my team the past 2 years.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, he's a great, consistent forward to have on your team. He did miss a few games last year. But he was still getting, I don't know, what did you say, 30? About 30, right? Averaging 30
like 32
points a game.
Fantasy points per game, yeah.
Yeah, which is very, very nice to have, especially if you can get him at that price. Like, that's round 8, isn't it? The 12
yeah,
team
round
league.
8 and a 10 team. It's a huge steal. I mean, I like
definitely a steal.
I like Christian Wood on Dallas. I like Michael Porter Jr., but he's kind of a risk with his back issues. So I think John Collins is like the big target. I mean, Jalen Suggs was right here, but Jalen Suggs just had a big injury today for Orlando, so he's going to drop. So I think the best target is Collins here in the 80s. All right. My next sleeper, Trey Jones. So this is the last Spur, I swear to God. He's likely to replace DeJounte Murray as the starting point guard. Plenty of touches and time to go around, especially under Popovich. And could do 35 to 40 minutes per game. His stats last year when starting 13 games were 13.5 points per game on 48.8 field goal percentage and 75.7 free throw percentage. 7.5 assists per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, and 1.1 steals per game in 32.6 minutes. So, I mean, if you can get that at pick 91, a starting point guard for your bench, that's going to be great. Or a utility guy. And, yeah, it's just a later Spur you can get. Say you don't get one of the first 2 guys on the sleeper list here. You can get him at 91 and be one of the potential guys breaking out this year. What do you think about him, Zach?
Um, yeah, I like Trey Jones. Was he on the Grizzlies last year? No, I'm thinking of
He
Tyus
was on the
Jones.
Spurs.
Okay. Um, yeah, with DeJounte gone, just like Vassell, there's room, there's shots need to be
And this guy does good
filled.
with assists too. He gets to just toss it to Vassell and Keldon Johnson.
Very true.
I
I
mean, if you
like
go
that.
look at the month of April, all his games in April at the end of basically the end of the season, he got over 30 minutes and he was really producing.
Okay.
And that's kind of what you're hoping he's going to do if he gets 30 plus minutes at the starting point guard position. He was got, so I'll just read it off, whatever. So starting on his game on April 1st, 34.5 fantasy points. April 3rd, 39.9 fantasy points. April 5th, 39.8 fantasy points. April 7th, 30.6 fantasy points. April 9th, 30.3. And April 10th, 28.2. So like he finished
Wow, that's a good
really
run.
strong, and those were all 30 plus minute games. Besides the last game was only 21 minutes, and he still almost got 30 fantasy points. So that's
Okay.
kind of what you're drafting for, because all his games before that, he was getting like under 20 minutes per game. He had one game, he got 37 minutes per game on March 12th. He got 47 fantasy points in a triple double. It's like you're drafting for the upside, I guess. Yeah, you're hoping. But there are
Definitely
some
upside.
other good picks there, a couple others. But I like him the best. Um, because so the guys he's next to, like at 89, okay, 90 is Josh Hart on Portland. I mean, he might be a starter, but he's not getting the usage. He's not one of the main guys. Tobias Harris at 89. I mean, the Philadelphia is stacked. And when they traded for James Harden, Tobias really slowed down a lot. Like his numbers went way down. So I really don't trust him this year. Klay Thompson at 88. I mean, that's a big risk. um, Only one I like right next to him is OG Anunoby at 92, but that's just for consistency. That's not really upside. We kind of know what he is at this point. So to me,
Definitely.
Trey Jones is the upside pick there. And up next is your player, dude.
All
At
right.
97, RJ Barrett.
Yes. All right. So my one is kind of most of my sleepers are kind of very late in the draft. Very late, but pretty late in the draft. Uh, and yeah, the first one being RJ Barrett. So uh, currently going at 97 ADP, which in a 12-team league brings you around the start of round 9, depending on where you're looking, round 8, round 9, maybe round 7 in some places, but still
Hmm.
it's pretty low. Um, Last year he's getting 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Uh, and so his the I think for this upcoming year, definitely that, and maybe even a little bit more. So New York gets Brunson at the point guard, I believe. So
Yeah.
with the addition there, I think you're gonna get just more open floor with Brunson creating shots, opening up the floor, allowing RJ Barrett to get some better shots going, and having him not really create the shots himself. He's kind of got some help there. Uh, I don't necessarily think that hurts his production. I think it helps it. Um, this is a guy that played 70 plus games the past 2 years. Very consistent. Not many injuries. His
Yeah,
efficiency did drop last year. 2021, he was shooting 44% from the field. It went down to 40%. Uh, his volume did increase a good amount last year, so I think that's something that could continue. Maybe not more than that, but maybe the volume he had last year could be uh, the same. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is just a reliable, consistent guy to get you 25 fantasy points a night. And for that late, if you can get someone that's reliably getting you that 25 plus, I think that's a great asset to have. I
yeah.
think.
I think just to chime in, I think he finished with like 32 fantasy points, or he was right around 30, right at the end of to average last year.
Yeah.
And
So.
I think you're right with an actual point guard that it really didn't have a good point guard last year. Derrick Rose was out most of the year, and the backups weren't good. Um, or didn't they have Kemba and he was horrible?
Hmm.
So I think with an actual good point guard at the helm, that'll make their whole offense better, and everybody will get more shots, including RJ, who was definitely their best player last year, and I think continues to be their best player this year.
Definitely agree.
Even though in fantasy I guess he's the third of the three off the board, but like we said, Julius Randle had a down year last year and one good year before that, so can you trust him? We'll find out. Um, but I like him a lot. He shouldn't be this low at 99, and you said his ADP is 97, so I mean he's behind Chris Boucher, Gary Trent Jr. I mean, come on, what is that?
Hmm.
So that's pretty horrible. And next up, I have the guy right behind him, PJ Washington. So I did some more research on if Miles Bridges is going to miss. And apparently there's a really high chance he is going to miss the year. Right now he's technically a restricted free agent. The team has not extended him an offer yet. They're waiting until the trial, I think, results.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
I mean, technically he's not even on the team right now.
Yeah.
So, the season starts in 10 days. So, yeah, when PJ Washington, he was a starter the 2 years before last year, and he averaged over 30 fantasy points per game. And he's confirmed as the starter this year, power forward. He's put up top 100 numbers before, and he's easily going to do that this year as a starter with this team. With LaMelo there, he's going to have a lot of easy putbacks, a lot of easy rebounds with LaMelo, throwing every defense off their game. And I think he should finish within the top 90, if not the top 80. So getting them at 100 is a steal to me.
100% agree on that. He's yeah, just a great player. I think I had him last year, and he was very productive. And was he a starter last year?
No, they moved him because of Miles Bridges' breakout. He was a bench player, so
He
somebody
still put
drafted
up
him last
numbers.
year. Yeah, but
Solid
not
numbers.
as good. He averaged over 30 the previous 2 years, so people drafted him. Then they dropped him. I grabbed him at one point. He was still averaging around 25 or 26, and then he fell off a little bit, and then I dropped him. And then, yeah, you picked him up, and by the end of the season, he did start doing better again for
Hmm.
you.
I like that
So,
where he's
but this
at.
year, it'd be very consistent. It'd be great.
Definitely.
Looks like you have the next guy in our list here with Jaden Ivey.
Okay. Yeah, so Jaden Ivey currently going around 116, depending on where you look. Um, does that bring you into around 10 if you're in a 12 team? Um,
Yeah.
I think personally this is amazing value. Uh, in preseason, this guy was starting alongside Cade at the shooting guard. Um, don't know 100% if that's going to happen in the season, but it kind of looks like it might. can imagine that they want to their first round pick on the floor as much as possible. Um, in college, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 46% from the field is very good. Um, Great playmaker, high volume potential if he's starting, consistent 25 plus point fantasy points per night. I think for that value, um, I think that's just great value for potentially very high volume alongside Cade.
Yeah, I'm seeing him moved up to. Yeah, I guess
He
people are
moved
drafting him
up.
late. So you're right. His ADP is 116, but ESPN has him ranked at 107. But I guess some people are delaying it about 10 picks to grab him. But I still think I agree with you, um, based on the players he's around and the upside. So he's a good pick
Yeah, lots of upside, I think.
for sure. Next guy here, I have Gordon Hayward at 119. So with the Miles Bridges situation, it's the same thing. So Gordon Hayward, the previous 2 years with Charlotte, was averaging over 30 fantasy points per game. Last year, he had injuries and kind of fell off, and Miles Bridges really took over. But this year, Gordon Hayward's still only 32. It seems like he's older, but he's not. And he's a great shooter, and LaMelo opens up the floor, so he's going to have a lot of easy shots. And I don't think Miles Bridges is going to play this year. So he could be back to like 33 fantasy points per game, and I think that makes him a steal at 119 around guys like Dennis Schroeder. So definitely a big sleeper for me. I mean, it's a really weak area once you get past 115. It's Kyle Lowry, Drummond, Schroeder, Hayward, Harrison Barnes, Herbert Jones. I just don't trust most of those guys. So I really like
Mhm.
Hayward there if you find yourself in that area.
Definitely. And this is a guy I had last year as well. Um, and fortunately traded him away before injury. Um, so yeah, looking at his past few seasons, his last his last season where he played over 70 games was 2019. Since then, 52 games, 44 games, 49 games last year. I feel like that could be a start of a trend. I'm not
Oh
sure.
gosh, yeah.
But, when he does play, he's a very productive scorer. Um, get you some boards, and
Yeah, and he does have
a
to compete
steal.
with Kelly Oubre as well. So,
Right. I think last year he was starting over the Oubre,
yeah.
and then once Hayward went out, Oubre really got a lot more minutes, and I'm not sure what the situation would be if they'd start them
Yeah, I
both
think
somehow,
it
or
was more of it. Miles Bridges really took away from him in the starting lineup, and now those touches are
gotcha.
available.
Definitely,
All he's
yeah.
got to do is be a spot shooter, and get a couple rebounds
Mhm.
and assists.
When he plays, definitely. I mean, he was getting 30 plus fantasy points when he played last year.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. And then I think
Solid value.
you got the next guy here.
Next guy I have at 126 ADP, depending on where you look, Jabari Smith Jr. So this is a guy drafted in the first round, third overall pick. He's going in the late 8th round, 9th round. Um, and I really don't see a reason for it. I mean, Houston is a very productive offense. I mean, they score a lot. Um, and yeah, just this late is very surprising. He did, I think he turned his ankle at practice, so he didn't get to play his second preseason game. But his first preseason game he played this year, he looked very good. Shooting, I think he got 24 points, not the exact stats, but it was a very good showing
Hmm.
for him that first preseason game, and then he turns his ankle. Did not play the
Yeah.
second preseason game, so I think that on top of uh, well, the injury, not seeing a second preseason game, and then just that he's a rookie may be the reason why he's down this low. But just seeing what he did in college, 17 points a game, uh, 7.5 rebounds, shooting 42% from the field. Uh, I think
Yeah.
he's easily 30 plus. He's a 30 plus fantasy point a night guy, whereas he's projected. Um, I think he's only projected around like 25 or so. Uh, I just elite defender, great shooter. I don't see how you could go wrong with him here. I don't think it's a lasting
Hmm.
injury or anything. He just turned his ankle. He's good.
Yeah, and he already has a NBA frame at 6'10", 220. And
Mm-hmm.
that game you were talking about on October 2nd, he scored 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists in 24 minutes. So if he's getting 30 minutes a night, I mean, you just add extra to that, he could be real scary.
I agree. It's a steal at that low. I
Yeah.
think we do see that go up as the draft gets closer. Um, and I know, like, even in our mock draft we did, he went in like 6 or 7. So see
Oh,
what
people reach for
happens.
him.
Yeah, I think some people are reaching. I would definitely
Hmm.
reach for him. Uh, just to make sure that I
Gotcha.
get him on my team. You know. So
Yeah, he's around guys like Nick Claxton, who might be the starter for Brooklyn, but he's not. He's like the fourth or fifth best option. Steven Adams is the Memphis center, but he's really getting up there. His knees are about shot. And then Derek Wright and
mhm.
Bogdan Bogdanovic are like role players, where Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be one of the main guys
Exactly.
on
Yeah.
Houston. Only guy I like around him so I forgot to put this guy on the list, on our sleeper list, but John Wall at 130, I think, is our next sleeper. I would still take Jabari Smith over him, but like, so the next guy on the list, John Wall,
Very true.
I forgot about him at 130, starting point guard for the Clippers, and his legs are still fresh. Like he might be 30, 30 years old now, but he hasn't played in 3 years.
Oh
So
yeah, easily a vintage year from John Wall coming up this season. It's it's gonna be fun to watch the Clippers
yeah,
play. They got a great team this
yes.
year.
So he's 32 years old, but he might not have played in 4 years. I had to figure this out. It's listed somewhere, but yeah, like his legs
Oh
are
wow.
fresh,
Yeah.
and I'm excited about him as well. That's like, so around this area, I think I would take Jabari first, and then John Wall after. Like if you don't get Jabari next up,
Hmm.
they're in the same area, so you're not going to get both unless you have some kind of back to back around there. But yeah, for sure. I'm glad we saw him there because I totally did not even list him. Slipped my mind. I think next up is your next guy.
Oh wow. Okay, got you. So next guy I have up is Cameron Johnson. His ADP is around 78, depending on where you look. So
Yeah, so his people are actually reaching for him now. So
oh,
his rank
really?
on ESPN
Okay.
is 178, but his ADP is 138, so people are overdrafting him
Gotcha.
compared to that rank.
Well, not
I,
necessarily because it could be accurate because this guy is a
yeah.
starter now. Um, so we're gonna definitely see some usage increase here with Cam. Uh, Great shooter, clutch shooter. Um, so looking from 2021 to 2022, both years where he was still on the bench, coming off the bench, uh, volume and efficiency both increased, shooting 42% in 2021, and he bumped that up to 46% from the field in 2022 on 100 more
Nice.
shots. So this guy has greatly improved over the past year. I don't know if that's an outlier or not, um, but we're definitely going to see that volume um, volume stay at least where it's at, or probably even more. Um, like I said, this guy is a great shooter. 30. So I have here in 2021, he's shooting 35% for three. And last year he bumped
Hmm.
it all the way up to a 42.5% from 3 point. So this guy was shooting well, I guess yeah, actually that's pretty solid. 42% from three is very good. So yeah, if we get that kind of shooting from him next year with even more increase in volume, this guy could he could really show out. And um, he definitely does have uh, there's a lot of playmakers on his team. Chris Paul, he's always passing the ball around, so that helps. You do have Booker there, who's going to take a lot of shots himself, but I think there's definitely um, room for Cam to see his shots as well. So, what do you think, Jake? That one?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with this. He was coming off the bench. Sometimes he got a couple starts last year, but mostly coming off the bench and only getting like 22, 23 minutes. And when he gets above 30 minutes, I mean, he's easily going to get you like 26 to 30 fantasy points. And
Actually,
he was breaking out at one point last year and getting like 35 or like getting really high fantasy points. And then he got this bad injury where he missed a decent amount of time. But yeah, he was on the verge of a breakout the second half of last year before that injury.
yeah,
So
he was one of my
yeah, I really
streamers
like.
last year. I had him
Hmm.
on and off on my team. Um, very, very good to have us streaming last year, but I think this year you could even, I mean, depending, he's got a
Hmm.
spot on your roster.
Yeah, man, and that late at one, if he
Yeah,
doesn't go at 138, if he goes closer to 178, that's a steal to get a starter
definitely.
caliber player there because there's a lot of just bench players in that area of the draft. So
Hmm.
I like him a lot. And I get two more sleepers for you guys before we close out. So James Wiseman at 198, he's having a really good offensive preseason. He scored 20 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block in 24 minutes during Friday's preseason matchup against the Wizards in Japan. So that was on September 30th, so it's a little ways back. But, he's showing why they drafted him in the first round a couple years ago. He's had a couple of injuries where, like, he missed all last year, but it looks like he's ready to go. And Draymond Green just had an incident, and he's been looking like he's fading anyway the past couple years. So it looks like it's James Wiseman time to step up and be the best big man on Golden
Hmm.
State. And you're getting this. I don't know why he's 198, dude. He might. He's. I think he's gonna. Yeah, they're gonna boost him up. I think within the next 10 days on the rankings. But even then, like, it's still a great pick.
I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah, any part of that Warriors offense is usually great to have. Um, so
Yeah.
and for that value. very good to have, especially since centers I think are slim pickings at that area in the draft. So getting a Weissman there would be very good pick, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last one I had is a sleeper and a stash, Jaren Jackson Jr. He had a surgery to repair a stress fracture in his right foot and was set to miss 4 to 6 months. That would put him on a timeline to come back between November and January. And I read a report that he's on the shorter end of that. So, I mean, if you can get a guy, if you can get him back by November, December, that would be, I think, a steal to get a starter power forward center like that late in the draft at 217. And you stash him in these stream guys until you get him back. That's just because you want them for the fantasy playoffs, which will happen at the end. So
100%.
I really like this as a stash if you have IR spots, which we always have in our leagues. Gotta grab them. I don't really like many of the other players around here. They're not going to give you. Nobody else around here is going to give you the value he's going to give when he gets back. So,
That's so
kind of like a must draft.
So true. If you can get him in, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, how far would you?
Yeah. I'd go up to right after Wiseman. Like, if you don't get Wiseman at 198, he might be one of the next best grabs. Even though he's ranked at 217, you could just go grab him.
Definitely.
But yeah, that'll close it out. Unless you had any other guys that came to mind, Zach.
I don't. I'm sure there's tons of other sleepers out there.
Yeah, there can only be so many sleepers.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure there's a few more, and then a few guys that will surprise us throughout the season. But we can only try to predict so much.
Exactly.
About 2 cents. But...
Yeah, these are the guys that stood out to us. Leave any other players in the comments. We're on YouTube right now. We're gonna be on Spotify and other podcasting streaming services soon. Once I get that website up, and follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So, thanks for listening, everyone, and Zach, thanks for coming on.
Of course, thanks again for having me.
Yes, sir.